Today, I'm going to teach you guys how to make a yeast starter. Now there's a lot of reasons why you may want to do a yeast starter, but really the most important, the one that I'm concerned with right now, is making a yeast starter really makes it easier for fermentation to begin, and it really kind of handles a lot of problems with fermentation. And a lot of brewers will come in and ask me questions like, well, my airlock's not bubbling, is my fermentation stuck, things like that. When you do a yeast starter, you basically find out whether or not your yeast is good or if it's not. So with that being said, you can always click the link in the description box to go to my website, and I'll have a complete list of all the tools that you'll need to make a yeast starter, and also more complete instructions on how to go about making a yeast starter. But for now, I'll kind of give you a brief overview, and here's what I've got. Basically, we're going to be making a yeast starter off of a 1056 American Ale. This is a yeast pouch activator, and to do that, I'm going to be using 150 milligrams of dry malt extract. This is the same dry malt extract that I'm going to be using for my beer tomorrow, and I'm doing this about 18 to 24 hours before I start brewing tomorrow. So the first step is going to be to bring 1.5 liters of water to a boil. And then after we bring our water to a boil, what we're going to do is we're going to be adding our dry malt extract. And we're not really making beer here, and that's the biggest distinction that I want to make here. Is what we're doing here really is we're trying to basically grow yeast. So we don't need to go through a full 60-minute boil. We don't need to be adding any hops or anything like that. We just need to keep clean sanitary conditions to make a wort, and then pitch our yeast so that yeast cells can grow. And then once all that happens, in about 18 hours from now, we collect all that yeast slurry, and we're going to be using that to pitch on our brew day tomorrow. So if you've seen some of my other videos where you see me pitching yeast out of a Erlenmeyer flask, that's basically, this is basically the one step that I usually don't include, but I decided to include it today because a lot of people have been asking me, well, how do I make a yeast starter? What's a yeast starter and all that? Also, there's a lot of benefits why you want to make a yeast starter. But really, if you really want to understand all the benefits to making a yeast starter, you're going to need to understand a little bit more about fermentation, how beer attenuates and all that. And a lot of that information you can find on our training, which you can check out by going to our website and just clicking on any of our links that point to how to brew beer, or simply by joining our blog email list, you can get access to a lot of that information as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, it takes a while for the water to bring to boil. Then we're going to be boiling for 15 minutes, and then we have to cool it. So you don't exactly need to activate the yeast packet, but it's always a good idea to do so, and I usually do it right before I start. If you read the back of these packets, it says right in here, it is not necessary for this package to fully swell before use. So even though it says that you may want to do it for, leave this to swell for 3 hours, it's not exactly necessary. It's just mixing with ingredients, and it's kind of like a mini starter in here to begin with. But anyways, we're gonna smack it and then just finish our thing over here. Now that our water is boiling, all we have to do is we're gonna be adding the full 150 milligrams of dry malt extract. Just make sure you stir it just as usual as if you were preparing a regular wort. And we're going to be boiling this for a total of 15 minutes. Make sure that you stir your wort occasionally. And once you have about a minute or so left, you want to go ahead and start preparing your ice bath. And again, we're going to be cooling this to about 68 degrees, 70 degrees, which is going to be right about our yeast pitching temperature. Although for yeast starters, really about 70 degrees is about the temperature where you want to be at. So as soon as your 15 minutes are up, what you want to do is you just want to go ahead and turn off the heat, give your wort a little bit of a stir, place your cover on top. You can bring this and place it in your ice bath. And now we just wait until it reaches our yeast pitching temperature, and then we'll begin to do the rest. After about 20 minutes or so, your wort should pretty much be right around 68 to 70 degrees. What you have to do now is you take your Erlenmeyer flask. This has been soaking in Ida-4 solution, so it's been sanitized. It's very, very important to keep everything very, very sanitized. And now, what you have to do is just pour this into it. Just like that. You go grab your yeast and your beer. You want to make sure to aerate this wort as much as you can prior to pitching your yeast. Good swirl like this for about a minute or so will give it enough oxygen. It's not really that important to aerate it just like you do with your other wort, because we're going to be leaving this somewhat uncovered. I'll show you how. So once you do that though, take your scissors, which again, make sure you clean your scissors, whatever you're using to cut, and make sure that you sanitize it as well. And then just go ahead and pour all of your yeast into your starter, just like that. Once you get as much as you can in there, go ahead and mix it in as much as you can. Now, I mentioned in the beginning, we're not really worried about making beer here. What we're really doing is we're trying to grow yeast. So we're not going to worry about putting an airlock on this. Really what we want to do is just cover this to keep any kind of bacteria from floating into it, any aerial bacteria that will just like fly into it. But you also want to leave it so that oxygen can actually get into it. So you can just wrap this with foil and then put it somewhere where it will stay at a steady temperature of about 70 degrees. And this is basically how you make a yeast starter. Again, this is 18 hours to 24 hours max right before you make your beer. That way you can pitch your yeast right when it's at high corrosion, and that will help your fermentation. And you can also be certain that you will achieve full attenuation, and if not, you can control your attenuation levels way better when you have enough yeast to pitch into your batch of beer. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and don't forget to leave me a comment, or if you have any other questions, please don't forget to leave me a comment, rate this video, share this with your friends, and we'll see you next time.